In the early hours of December 29, 2017, tragedy struck in Argentina. 20-year-old Fernando Pastorizo was discovered lying lifeless on a deserted road, a victim of a heinous shooting. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but despite their urgent efforts, Fernando succumbed to his injuries before he could reach the hospital. Initially, the police speculated that Fernando had fallen prey to robbers. However, as they examined the scene, it became clear that nothing had been taken from him. This revelation shifted the investigation's focus towards a more sinister possibility, leading them to an individual who was surprisingly close to the victim. This individual, who was once above suspicion, would eventually become one of the youngest people in Argentina to receive a life sentence. The case surrounding Fernando's death would spiral into one of the most notorious and emblematic in the nation's history. Fernando Gabriel Pastorizo was born on January 3, 1997, in Entre Rios, Argentina. He was the cherished son of Gustavo Pastorizo and Silvia Montes, whose separation during his childhood did not hinder their commitment to providing a loving environment for Fernando and his sister Carla. Despite the challenges, they ensured that their children experienced a happy and fulfilling upbringing. Described as an extroverted and vivacious young man, Fernando had a passion for life that drew people to him. Reports indicate that he formed friendships easily and was known for his infectious sense of humor. In 2012, a pivotal moment unfolded in Fernando's life that filled him with joy. He began a relationship with one of the most popular girls at his school. At just 14 years old, Nahir Galarza, born on September 11, 1998, captured Fernando's heart, solidifying a bond that would soon be tested in unimaginable ways. Nahir was the daughter of Marcelo Galarza and Yamina Crow, and she had an older brother, Aaron. Renowned for her striking beauty, Nahir was a fixture in the social scene at school, garnering attention from many admirers. Her family background was noteworthy. Her mother was a former police officer, while her father held a senior position within the local police force. Residing in Gualeguaychú, a bustling city near the Uruguayan border, Nahir's family wielded considerable influence in their community. This power often shielded her from the consequences of her actions, as her parents were known to intervene whenever she found herself in trouble. Nahir was unreserved in her confidence, even boasting to classmates that her father could extricate her from any predicament. Described as spoiled and vain, she was accustomed to getting her way, a trait that was seemingly nurtured by a mother who favored friendship over authority. This dynamic left Nahir's father as the only figure of authority in their household. Psychologist Gabriel Cartana, who would later analyze the case, noted that both Nahir and her mother idolized him, viewing him as a godlike figure, while other forms of authority were disregarded. Despite the evident flaws in her upbringing, Nahir excelled academically and was an active member of the school hockey team. Additionally, she earned the title of Queen of a Carnival Float, showcasing her multifaceted talents. To those unaware of her family dynamics, she appeared to be a model student. Nahir's beauty made her the object of desire among her peers, with many boys vying for her attention. This captivating allure only added to the complexity of her character, masking the turbulence that lay beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect life. As the investigation into Fernando's death progressed, the intertwining lives of these two young individuals would reveal a tangled web of love, betrayal, and ultimately, tragedy. What began as a budding romance would spiral into a nightmare that would haunt a community and a nation. Despite a tumultuous upbringing, Nahir Galarza emerged as a diligent student, excelling in academics and sports. She captured the spotlight as a member of the hockey team and was crowned Queen of a Carnival Float. To those outside her family, she appeared to be a model young woman. Her beauty made her highly sought after among her classmates, with boys vying for her attention at every turn. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect image, turmoil lurked. Nahir's allure did not shield her from the complexities of her personal life. She was the subject of admiration, yet many remained unaware of the darker realities that lay hidden within her family's dynamics. Nahir Galarza thrived on her power over others. She had a notorious reputation at school, where she often bullied her peers, targeting those she deemed unattractive or inferior. On one memorable occasion, after a classmate rented a dress resembling the one Nahir wore to her extravagant 15th birthday party, a fierce rage took hold of her. She accused the girl of deliberately trying to undermine her. In a calculated display of cruelty, Nahir unleashed a torrent of mockery on social media, mercilessly belittling the girl through Facebook and private messages. Her aggression escalated to threats, demanding the girl cease wearing anything similar to her prized dress. Students at the school observed that Nahir resorted to intimidation whenever she felt threatened or insecure around others. Nahir's manipulative tactics were well known. She wielded threats like weapons to control and intimidate those around her. When she began dating Fernando Pastorizo, they chose to keep their relationship under wraps. Despite the obvious affection shared between them, they denied their connection when asked. This secrecy was primarily Nahir's doing. She craved the freedom to explore relationships with other boys while maintaining her bond with Fernando. Nahir orchestrated their outings, often inviting handsome boys over to her house for movie nights, a fact her parents were fully aware of but chose to ignore. Unbeknownst to Nahir, Fernando was soon to discover that he was being deceived. The realization hit him hard, shattering his heart as it was his first love. In the confusion of teenage emotions, he grappled with the decision to remain in the relationship, ultimately opting to see other girls instead. When Nahir learned of his actions, her fury erupted. She became obsessively protective, scrutinizing Fernando's cell phone for evidence of other romantic interests and restricting his outings with friends. Eventually, they chose to make their relationship public, a move that relieved Nahir's parents, who hoped it would curb their daughter's rebellious tendencies. Their parents believed that a committed relationship with Fernando would anchor Nahir, steering her away from potential trouble. In 2016, Nahir's parents planned a trip to Brazil, inviting Fernando to join them, believing it would be a wonderful opportunity for the couple. By this time, their relationship had become more established, with social media brimming with photos and proclamations of their love. However, this facade of happiness was fleeting as cracks began to appear in their once solid bond. The cycle of betrayal resurfaced, leading to frequent arguments and breakups. Their tumultuous relationship oscillated between separation and reconciliation, spiraling into instability. In 2017, following her graduation from high school, Nahir enrolled in law school at the University of Concepción del Uruguay. It was here that she embarked on affairs with both a teacher and fellow students, including Joaquin and Rafael. Nahir openly confided in her friends about her relationship with Rafael, all while still entwined with Fernando. Concerned for their friend, Fernando's companions urged him to end the toxic relationship, yet he remained resolute in his feelings, unwilling to heed their warnings. As summer approached, Nahir's family planned a trip to a neighboring country, inviting Fernando Pastorizo to join them for the holidays. By this time, the relationship between Nahir and Fernando had strengthened, marked by a flurry of affectionate social media posts and photographs that portrayed a picture of harmony. But this facade would soon shatter. The couple's bond was fraught with instability, as betrayals and constant quarrels plagued their time together. They would break up only to reconcile repeatedly, creating a toxic cycle that eroded the foundation of their relationship. Nahir's life took a new turn in 2017 when she enrolled in law studies at the University of Concepción del Uruguay. Here, she embarked on various affairs, notably with a colleague named Joaquin and another named Rafael. She even confided in friends about her budding romance with Rafael, all while still entangled with Fernando. Fernando's friends, aware of the tumultuous history that defined their relationship, urged him to break free from Nahir's grasp. Yet he remained unwilling to heed their warnings, clinging to the hope that their love could withstand the chaos. Amidst the chaos of their tumultuous relationship, Nahir Galarza clung to her connection with Fernando Pastorizo. His friends, well aware of the couple's troubled history, urged him to break free from the toxic bond. Yet Fernando remained steadfast, unwilling to heed their warnings. As the year drew to a close in 2017, Fernando Pastorizo grappled with the realization that his tumultuous relationship with Nahir Galarza was beyond repair. By December, he began sending subtle signals to Nahir, hinting it was time to part ways. In response to Fernando's distancing, Nahir resorted to intimidation. She warned him that should he leave her, there would be consequences. To amplify her threats, she capitalized on the bruises adorning her body. These marks, acquired during hockey games, became a weapon in her arsenal. Nahir spread false rumors that Fernando had physically assaulted her. Whenever she suspected Fernando of infidelity, she unleashed a torrent of insults and threats, all while she herself was unfaithful. On December 25, 2017, a pivotal event unfolded that would seal Fernando's decision to end the relationship for good. That Christmas night, as he entered a nightclub, he was shocked to find Nahir sharing a kiss with another man, Rafael. Fury surged within Fernando as he confronted the pair. Rafael, sensing the brewing storm, retreated, leaving Fernando and Nahir to engage in a heated argument. In his anger, Fernando grasped Nahir by the shoulders, a gesture that led onlookers to misinterpret the situation as an attack. Amidst the chaos, Nahir's friend, Saul Martinez, intervened, throwing a punch at Fernando, demanding he step away from Nahir. The confrontation escalated, culminating in Fernando being ejected from the nightclub, leaving him crushed and in tears. Hours later, the night took a darker turn as Nahir and Saul arrived at Fernando's home. Their intentions were far from innocent. They unleashed a barrage of physical attacks against him. During the assault, Nahir cruelly warned Fernando not to fight back, invoking the authority of her police officer father. When the assault concluded, the two girls discovered that Fernando had been filming the incident. They forced him to erase the evidence, leaving him shaken. In a later moment of vulnerability, Fernando confided in a friend about the near unconsciousness he experienced during the brutal encounter. Tensions escalated when an incident occurred in which Fernando was recorded without consent by two girls, who then confronted him aggressively. They forced him to delete the footage, leaving him shaken and vulnerable. Later, he confided in a friend, revealing the emotional toll the harassment had taken. What pained Fernando the most were the cruel remarks made about his family during the altercation. Seeking solace, he reached out to Nahir's aunt, believing she would empathize with his plight. Initially, she sided with him, but after speaking to Nahir, her stance shifted dramatically. In a heartbreaking twist, she dismissed Fernando's account as mere fabrication, leaving him feeling isolated and misunderstood. In the days that followed, Fernando's mental state deteriorated. Distraught and devastated, he contemplated a fresh start away from Nahir and the pain of their tumultuous relationship. Encouraged by friends, he considered moving to a new city for college. In December, he took the first step, enrolling in a university far from the memories that haunted him. Classes were set to commence in March of the following year, but fate had other plans for Fernando. On December 28, 2017, Fernando had what would become his final conversation with Nahir. With a heavy heart, he expressed his desire to sever ties completely, hoping to start anew without her. In a desperate plea, Nahir visited him in the early hours of the morning, around 2 a.m. She implored him not to leave, requesting to spend one final night together, as if to cling to the remnants of their once vibrant bond. In the dead of night, at around 2 a.m., Nahir made her way to Fernando's house. Her voice trembled with desperation as she professed her fear of losing him, pleading to spend one last night together, even if it meant saying goodbye forever. Fernando accepted Nahir Galarza's request, and the two spent the night at her house. Sources indicate that Fernando stayed for approximately 3 hours, during which the two engaged in intimate relations. Afterward, he bid her farewell and walked toward his motorcycle. Nahir accompanied him, requesting one last favor, a ride to her grandmother's house. Fernando, trusting and unsuspecting, agreed and patiently waited for her to return after entering the house. Inside, Nahir seized a 9mm pistol belonging to her father, discreetly tucking it into her pocket. Moments later, in a secluded and dimly lit area, she instructed Fernando to stop the motorcycle. Naively, he complied with her request. As Fernando dismounted, Nahir turned and shot him in the back. The force of the bullet sent him crashing to the ground beside his motorcycle. To ensure he would not survive, she approached him and fired again at point-blank range. Then, in a frantic search for evidence, Nahir began scouring the area for shell casings. Though she desperately sought to eliminate any trace of her crime, Nahir was unable to recover them all. Later, police would discover one of the shell casings near the scene. At that moment, a taxi driver unknowingly passed by, witnessing Nahir collecting evidence. He observed a young man lying on the ground with a girl crouched beside him, assuming it was nothing serious. After the heinous act, Nahir returned home on foot, captured on a security camera walking calmly at 5:22 a.m. Upon arriving, she returned her father's gun to its rightful place, took a shower, and went to sleep. Just minutes after she left the scene, the same taxi driver returned, this time encountering Fernando lying alone in the street. Concerned, the taxi driver stopped and approached Fernando, quickly realizing the severity of the situation. He promptly called emergency services, but despite their swift arrival, Fernando succumbed to his injuries before reaching the hospital. The crime unfolded on a road not far from Fernando's home. Initially, authorities suspected robbery as the motive for the attack. However, upon arriving at the crime scene, they noted that none of Fernando's belongings were missing. His cell phone, wallet, money, and motorcycle remained untouched. This revelation compelled the police to pivot their investigation, focusing instead on the possibility that the assailant had a singular goal: to end Fernando's life. Within hours, news of the crime rippled through the city of Guaguaychú, leaving residents shocked by the tragic fate of the young man, just 20-year-old Fernando Pastorizo. Before learning of the horrific events that had befallen her son, Sylvia Mantis, Fernando's mother, reached out to Nahir, hoping she knew his whereabouts as he had not returned home. Nahir, with calculated deception, lied about the last time she saw Fernando, claiming it was around 11 p.m. Hours later, Sylvia received a devastating call from the police, revealing the tragic news of her son's murder. Under pressure, Nahir fabricated a timeline, claiming she last saw Fernando around 11 p.m., but fate would soon deal a devastating blow. A few hours later, Sylvia Mantes received a heartbreaking call from the police, informing her of the tragic events that had unfolded regarding her son. In the wake of tragedy, the woman, accompanied by Fernando Pastorizo's father, was utterly devastated. As news of Fernando's untimely demise began to spread, Nahir Galarza seized the moment, posting on her social media to express her sorrow. In a heartfelt message, Nahir expressed her regrets, declaring that despite the tumultuous nature of their relationship, Fernando would always be the love of her life, a sentiment she vowed would endure forever. As the investigation unfolded, police uncovered a crucial detail. The route Fernando had taken on his motorcycle that fateful day was not his typical path. This deviation raised suspicions, leading investigators to believe that Fernando had been lured to that location. In the course of the investigation, Nahir was called in to provide a statement, given her close connection to Fernando. During her questioning, she suggested that the perpetrator could possibly be a relative or one of Fernando's close friends, who was also a police officer. However, throughout her testimony, the police noted a chilling detachment in Nahir's demeanor. She appeared shockingly unfazed by Fernando's death, which prompted investigators to shift their focus toward her, raising suspicions that she might have orchestrated his murder. With mounting evidence, the police theorized that Nahir lacked the resolve to commit the crime herself, but had instead hired someone to do the deed. This theory began to take root in the minds of the officers involved in the case. A few days later, an arrest warrant was issued for Nahir Galarza, now the primary suspect in Fernando's murder. When she arrived at the police station, she was accompanied by a lawyer, and her new statement was stark and unyielding, asserting her ignorance regarding the identity of the true culprit. Yet, in a chilling confession made to her parents days prior, Nahir had divulged that she was responsible for Fernando's death. This revelation set her parents on a frantic quest to devise a plan to protect their daughter from the consequences. It was Nahir's father who engaged the lawyer who would represent her. The attorney, highly regarded in his field, arrived at the police station following the issuance of the arrest warrant. In Argentina, the legal ramifications are amplified when the perpetrator has a personal relationship with the victim, a fact Nahir's defense team was acutely aware of. Nahir's defense strategy hinged on convincing authorities that she had no significant relationship with Fernando. In a subsequent statement, she insisted that their interactions had been limited to casual outings, dismissing any notion of a deeper connection. In a bid to support this narrative, Nahir's father took to the press, claiming that his daughter and Fernando were never romantically involved. He asserted that while they had known each other for 5 years, their relationship had never crossed the line into romance. This statement, however, was a calculated move to mitigate the charges against Nahir, aiming to reduce the potential sentence for simple homicide, ranging from 8 to 25 years, instead of facing aggravated homicide due to their bond. Nahir's father also made troubling claims to the Argentine press, suggesting that Fernando had mistreated his daughter. He recounted instances where he and his wife discovered Nahir with severe injuries, only for her to attribute them to other causes. It was later revealed that Fernando had been the source of her injuries. Despite their claims, the narrative that Nahir and Fernando had no genuine relationship was swiftly dismantled by the police. Evidence emerged in the form of photographs from a family trip to Brazil, which included heartwarming videos showcasing Fernando and Nahir professing their love for one another. The investigation took a poignant turn when police uncovered a collection of photographs from a family trip to Brazil, revealing moments of joy shared by Fernando Pastorizo and Nahir Galarza. Alongside these images, videos surfaced, showcasing the young couple openly professing their love for one another, a stark contrast to the tragedy that would soon unfold. As the evidence began to unravel, Nahir Galarza found herself cornered. In a desperate attempt to salvage her story, she altered her narrative once more. She claimed that, while she indeed had a relationship with Fernando Pastorizo, he had subjected her to constant abuse. On the day of the crime, she alleged, Fernando had taken her father's gun and coerced her onto his motorcycle. According to her account, during their ride, Fernando lost control of the motorcycle, leading to a crash that allowed her to wrest the gun away from him. In a moment of panic, she claimed, the gun discharged, striking Fernando in the back. Overwhelmed with fear and uncertainty, she insisted that she accidentally shot him again. Nahir's version of events was not only far-fetched, but riddled with inconsistencies. Despite the oddities in her story, a wave of support surged from her circle. Campaigns sprang to life on the internet, led by friends advocating for her release. Feminist groups rallied together, staging protests that echoed across the nation, demanding justice for Nahir. In an effort to bolster her defense, Nahir reached out to her friend, Sol Martinez, asking her to testify that Fernando had been abusive. However, this strategy backfired spectacularly. During questioning, Sol inadvertently contradicted herself, providing the police with a wealth of additional inquiries that only deepened the investigation. Witnesses close to Fernando, too, were summoned to testify. Their accounts painted a starkly different picture, revealing the pain and suffering Fernando endured at Nahir's hands, including a harrowing incident where she and Sol Martinez had physically assaulted him. Throughout the ordeal, Nahir captivated the Argentine media, her name trending across social platforms. She appeared to revel in the attention, as the case stirred significant public interest, not just in Argentina, but throughout South America. Fernando Pastorizo was laid to rest in Gualeguaychú, his funeral drawing hundreds of mourners. On June 2, 2018, the trial against Nahir Galarza commenced. Her defense team continued to concoct narratives aimed at portraying Fernando as the aggressor. However, a dramatic twist awaited them, one that would shift the courtroom dynamics entirely. Gabriel Cartana, a psychologist hired to assess Nahir's claims of abuse, delivered a shocking testimony that turned the tide. In a scathing assessment, Gabriel declared Nahir to be manipulative and spoiled, asserting that she indeed had a relationship with Fernando and had never suffered violence from him. This revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom, leading to Gabriel's dismissal by the defense, who then barred him from disclosing further clinical findings. Despite their efforts to regain control of the narrative, the defense's attempts proved futile. All signs pointed toward Nahir's impending guilt and a conviction that loomed ominously over the proceedings. Despite attempts by the defense to obscure crucial clinical reports concerning Nahir, their efforts proved futile. The evidence weighed heavily against her, leading many to believe that a conviction was imminent. On July 3, 2018, the courtroom atmosphere thickened with tension as Nahir Galarza was pronounced guilty of the crime that claimed Fernando Pastorizo's life. The sentence was severe: life in prison, with a minimum of 35 years before any chance of parole. In the days following Nahir's conviction, protests erupted across multiple cities in Argentina, led by feminist groups who demanded a re-examination of her sentence. Yet their voices fell on deaf ears, and the court upheld the ruling without hesitation. In her initial interviews from behind bars, Nahir spoke of the events surrounding Fernando's death as if they were shrouded in mystique, devoid of personal accountability. She expressed profound sadness in prison, particularly on weekends, lamenting her lost freedom to dance and drink. As she reflected on her circumstances, Nahir's words painted a picture of detachment from the reality of her actions, suggesting a haunting absence of remorse for the life she had irrevocably changed. Nahir Galarza, a young woman with influential parents and a case that captured public attention, found herself in a unique situation. She was transferred to a facility known as the Farm. This prison, unlike traditional ones, lacked bars and cells, offering rooms designed for recreational activities, study, and social interaction. Inside this facility, Inmates could engage in various activities and even access their social media accounts. A photograph emerged from within the prison walls, allegedly shared by Nahir herself, showcasing her life behind bars. In the caption accompanying the image, Nahir expressed her frustration, declaring, "Serving this damn sentence." It was also reported that during her confinement, she began a relationship with a fellow inmate named Matthias, whom she had met during a visit to his grandmother. Matthias shared the same prison as Nahir, forming a bond amidst the chaos. However, the legal battles continued to rage outside the prison walls. In August 2019, the Criminal Cassation Chamber of Concordia denied an appeal filed by Nahir's defense, while reports indicated her active participation in various prison programs. Among these, she pursued studies in psychology. Yet, in March 2020, the Supreme Court of Justice of Entre Rios rejected yet another appeal from her legal team. Then, in January 2022, a shocking twist occurred. Nahir changed her legal representation and, with her mother's backing, leveled serious accusations against her own father. Nahir claimed that it was her father, Marcelo Galarza, who was truly responsible for Fernando Pastorizo's death. She alleged that he coerced her into taking the blame, promising that his influence would soon free her from incarceration. Nahir even posted on social media, reminiscing about her 15th birthday party, sharing photos that obscured her father's face. In her post, she reflected on how that day, once joyful, became the catalyst for the nightmare that followed. This public accusation against her father led to a significant change in their family dynamic. With his wife's support, Marcelo chose to divorce and retreated into isolation. He lost over 33 pounds and relocated to a small farm in Guagliaguaichu. In a heart-wrenching statement, Marcelo expressed his devastation, feeling as though his family had been ripped apart. He described the experience as overwhelmingly painful. Currently, Marcelo focuses on raising chickens and maintains a connection with his son Aaron, who has been a pillar of support during their tumultuous time. Despite these familial upheavals, authorities remain steadfast in their position, asserting that there is no evidence implicating Marcelo Galarza as the perpetrator of Fernando Pastorizo's murder. Many believe that Nahir's allegations, along with her defense's strategy, are desperate attempts to extricate her from her dire situation. Authorities dismissed claims suggesting that Marcelo Galarza, Nahir's father, was involved in Fernando's death. Such allegations, propagated by Nahir and her defense team, were viewed as desperate attempts to shift blame and secure her release. Further complicating the narrative, rumors circulated that Nahir was pregnant at the time of her arrest, though this pregnancy did not come to fruition. The public's fascination with this case continued to grow, culminating in the May 2024 release of the film Nahir on Amazon Prime Video. Critics were quick to point out the film's distorted portrayal of the events, arguing that it sought to cast Nahir Galarza as a victim despite its basis in real-life tragedy. The film's dramatic reinterpretation strayed far from the truth, transforming the harrowing tale into a fictional narrative that left audiences questioning the authenticity of the story being told. Currently, Nahir Galarza resides in a women's prison in Argentina, marking a grim milestone as the youngest woman in the nation's history to receive a life sentence. Her story remains a chilling reminder of love's potential descent into tragedy.